Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today's video is titled, Nephew, male 38, confronted his wife, female 36, who's been cheating on him with his father. Please like, subscribe, and turn on that bell so you never miss a video. Let's get right into it. As per my previous posts, my twin sister, female 60, discovered in late May that her husband of 40 years has not only been cheating on her, but it's with none other than their eldest son's wife. There are no words in the English language that could possibly come close to describing the anguish of this situation. My nephew had been stationed in Germany since January and initially wasn't due home until the end of the year. That was until his younger brother and sister had literally flown to Europe to break the devastating news to him in person. He soon filed a request for emergency leave and it was granted last week. Upon arriving on Thursday midday after an 11-hour flight and little to no sleep for quite a few days, since having learned about the depravity of his father's actions, he insisted on going to the hospital to confront the man he has idolized all his life, and reassured his sister, who'd pick him up from the base, that he would show restraint. That soon turned out to be anything but, and who could blame him? My niece had accompanied him inside, and after coming to the realization that their father was busy in the OR and wouldn't be done until a few hours later, my nephew went ballistic and had a hard time taking no for an answer. When the receptionist asked if she could take a message in an attempt to calm him down, he retorted with more expletives aimed at his father and said, "Ask him who he's effing. You all love him, but I am here to tell you he's a sick son of a b. Tell him I said to go F himself." My niece was besides herself and began crying because all eyes were on them, and many people know who they are. As he got louder, security was called and they were asked to leave immediately. My niece later recounted the story to me and regretted giving into her brother's demands because it was a terrible idea that should have never happened. Suffice to say, just about everyone who was at the hospital that day knows that the good doctor is having an affair. It's only a matter of time before the gossip circles inside and outside its walls finally figure out who the other woman is. My nephew then went home to his mom, and my sister was inconsolable from the moment her son stepped into her house. She initially didn't want to show him all the texts between his father and wife, but he demanded to read them, leaving her no choice. My brother-in-law soon learned about all the commotion that happened earlier that day at the hospital and took the extraordinary step of calling, but no one answered. In fact, none of his children are actually speaking to him since they found out. It's a given that his mistress soon found out too. My nephew wanted to see his kids, so he got his mother to drive him to the house that she shares with his wife and kids. It turns out that my nephew has been having doubts about whether or not his daughter, the younger of the two children, is actually his. That evening, the argument with his wife dissolved into a screaming match that later resulted in a neighbor calling the cops. We've since learned that my nephew asked his wife over and over who is the biological father of their daughter, and she finally admitted that she doesn't know. His wife admitted to being in love and sleeping with his father since late 2016, a few months after giving birth to their son. The daughter was born in December 2017. My nephew hasn't confronted his father face-to-face as yet, but received a letter over the weekend addressed to all three children, which they refused to read. My sister did open it, and her husband wrote, among other things, that he's deeply sorry for the insurmountable pain and misery. He's far from perfect, understands if his children don't ever want to speak to him or see him if ever again, and realizes that nothing he says or does will ever change the situation he has caused, but they should never forget that he'll never stop loving them until the day he dies. The sheer audacity of a man who has hidden behind his looks, money, and success for decades, only to be reduced to a pitiful excuse for a human being. My nephew is going to be home for 3 weeks before he goes back, and has since retained the services of a lawyer in order to obtain a court order to establish paternity. It's devastating to watch the people I love so much be consumed by sadness and heartbreak of unprecedented proportions. If it wasn't bad enough already, my nephew has been hitting the bottle every day since his return last week. The first comment says, How can you do that to your own son? This is one of the most disgusting things that a father can do to his son. And for someone who you look up to, your nephew needs to start the divorce process now. He can't be with someone that cheats on them with their own father-in-law. You need to check your nephew into rehab because he could become an alcoholic and potentially lose his job. He can't do that for the sake of his kids. He has to be strong for his kids. I know that it is hard right now, but the nephew has to be strong if he is going to get custody of his children. For the brother-in-law, you have a wife and someone that loves you. You married her for over 40 years. Why would you do that, you idiot? You need to break up with your family and leave them all of them. You deserve to rot in hell for what you did. You know what you did, and for you to say that you are far from perfect, get that BS out of here. There are people in worse situations that get better by their own sheer will, not by submitting to their urges. You are a disgusting father, and why would you do that to your own son? He loves you. He looked up to you, and now he is an alcoholic, and he could potentially lose his job, marriage, and potentially his kids. Do you realize what kind of S he might be going through right now? Get out and don't look back, because you don't deserve a family that loved you and cared and respected you. And the second comment says, unfortunately, I relate to this far too much for my own liking. I spent my childhood watching this near exact scenario and lived through it. It is unbelievably devastating to watch and go through a family fall to its knees because of the pure selfishness of two people. My stepdad was in the army and, as most know, spent a lot of time away from the family home. My quote-unquote mother and stepdad's father had an affair from me being 3 years old till I was 10. She also had my youngest brother during that time period, and without a doubt, he is the son of her father-in-law. I'm 38 now, and I still cannot put into words the impact this has had throughout our lives. Please be there to support each other and take one day at a time to process this devastation that you are all going through. My deepest thoughts are with you all. And the third comment says, I have no words to confront you and your family in this abhorrent situation. Your sister and nephew need professional help, surely. I hope when they file for divorce, they sue those two animals penniless and get a bountiful sum in monetary compensation. No amount of money will ever patch these wounds, but those two beasts deserve to be left with as little as possible. Sadly, the children should definitely undergo paternity testing, and I have serious doubts of that disgusting woman's capacity to even properly take care of her children, given how monstrous and beastly she has proven herself to be. How can someone without any morals raise functional human beings? Is she planning on raising her kids with their grandfather/father? Those poor innocent souls deserve better, and the rest of the family need to cut both adulterers off and pretend they're dead.